Jonathan Edwards.
Madam Deputy Speaker, in the time available to me, I'd like to touch on a number of points which are relevant to this debate, starting with what has been the main crux of the debate this afternoon, the future trading relationship between the EU and the UK. Yesterday, the European Parliament passed its resolution on the framework of the future trade relationship. And this will also obviously feed into the EU summit next week and also into the EU negotiating position. And it reiterated the position that Plaid Cymru have had from the very first day since the referendum result, that the best course of action for us would be to stay within the single market and the customs union. And this is the only realistic solution, of course, for avoiding a hard border on the island of Ireland. And of equal concern to me in Wales, of course, a hard border in the ports of Holyhead, Fishguard and Pembroke Dock. We know that the EU have frozen talks until the British government come up with a solution to this problem. Well, it's on a plate for the British government if they will only listen to the evidence. Whilst I'm discussing this, perhaps it would be an opportunity to discuss the Labour Party's policy on a customs union, which of course is a completely different thing. It's more or less a souped-up trade deal. A customs union is what Turkey have got. They do not benefit from all the international trade agreements that the European Union currently have. And we had a long discussion today about the 50 or 60 or so trade deals that entails. It accumulates with a worth of around £140 billion for UK trade. We would lose those. And the other factor with a customs union, of course, is that whilst the UK would lose the benefit of those third country deals that the EU customs union already has, those countries will be able to import into the UK. I had thought that Labour's solution was one that could actually deal with the problem of Northern Ireland. But as we see from Turkey, they have to have lorry parks on the border with Hungary and Romania to deal with the border issues. And that would be the case in Northern Ireland. It wouldn't deal with the major issue in terms of the border on the island of Ireland. The second issue I'd like to raise is the cost to individuals. The National Institute of Economic and Social Research has already said that the cost to households in the UK is around £600 per annum. Rabobank has put the cost of a no-deal Brexit at £11,500 per person. But I think the biggest cost is going to face us in terms of our public services. 20% of doctors working in the Welsh Health Service come from the European Union, and some of these have already left. 45% of EU doctors in Wales have said that they are considering leaving, and we know that 12% have already gone. I had a summit last week with the Hywel Dda Health Board in my constituency about huge reorganisation plans for the health service in the west of my country, and closures of hospitals are on the table because they cannot recruit and retain staff. Brexit is going to make that matter far worse. The third issue I'd like to discuss briefly is the issue of EU citizenship, which Plaid Cymru won a vote for the first time in our history. 50 years service in the House of Commons. Let me just carry on a bit. 50 years we won our first motion on the floor of this House on protecting EU citizenship for UK subjects. Now that the British government has been mandated by the House of Commons, I look forward to them progressing that. And indeed the European Parliament yesterday in their resolutions reaffirmed Plaid Cymru's position.
Wayne doesn't share my concern that throughout the entire process of Brexit, people have been saying about taking back control and respecting the sovereignty of this House. So I'm sure, like me, he looks forward to the UK government adhering to that motion, which was passed unanimously in this House.
I'm very grateful for that intervention, and we look forward, and as I'm sure my comrades in the SNP look forward to holding the government to account on that very important debate we had last week. The fourth issue I'd like to discuss is the issue of the meaningful vote. Us as members of this House should not be in a position where we can either vote for a bar deal or no deal. And that indeed was the position outlined yesterday in the other place when my colleague Lord Wigley raised this issue in the other place. And that then, I think, strengthens the argument that had been put forward by some members, especially the member for Broxtowe, when she made the case for a second referendum on the terms of the deal. I disagree slightly with the member for Lewisham, who argued that there's been no change in public opinion. I can say from my experiences, I was in the hairdressers in Ammanford on Friday, and I was speaking to many people there who voted out, and who are pleading on me to try and sort out the mess that we now face and thus say that they would vote differently. I was buying tiles with my wife in Cross Hands on Saturday morning for the bathroom in our home, and everybody there was exactly saying the same. So I think there's been a big change in public opinion, and I think people, if they were given the opportunity to vote now on the facts before them, there would be a change of opinion. The last issue, the next issue I want to discuss is the prospect of a no deal. We've often heard from pro-Brexit MPs that there should be a bargaining position held against the European Union. A no deal scenario for Wales would be absolutely catastrophic, as was raised excellently by the member for Bridgend, and I feel no reason to reiterate the points that she made. I'd lastly like to conclude on perhaps one of the biggest issues facing the constitutional implications of Brexit, which is the power grab, which is now impacting and facing the Welsh Government, the Scottish Government, the National Assembly and the Scottish Parliament.
The Prime Minister has repeatedly said that Brexit means Brexit, but she doesn't seem to understand that devolution means devolution. Would you agree?
Well, I fully agree with the honourable lady. We've had two referenda in Wales which have enshrined the constitutional settlement that we've got, and we've got a British government now riding a sledgehammer through that constitutional settlement. I enjoy the member for Wokinham's paraphrase of a puppet parliament. The reality is if the Clause 11 of the EU withdrawal bill goes through unamended, and unless the British government accept the recommendations of the Welsh Government and the Scottish Government, our respective parliaments within the British state will be puppet parliaments. Which brings me to the issue at hand in terms of creating the new UK internal market, which will have to be created following Brexit. Of course, we've got an EU internal market at the moment which deals with these issues in terms of trade within the British state. Now, I recognise, as somebody who supports Welsh independence, there will have to be a UK internal market if we are to end up leaving the EU single market. The challenge at hand is who constructs that UK internal market. Is it done on the basis of the political reality we face now in the British state, that it's a multipolar state with 4 national governments, or is it done by direct rule from Westminster? Not only the construction, of course, but how that internal market is regulated. And I would finish on this, Mr. Speaker. I think Westminster plays about with the constitutional settlements of Scotland and Wales at its perils. Yes. Because unless some respect is shown to the Welsh Government, to the people of Wales and to the people of Scotland, instead of the disrespect agenda that we have at the moment, it will not be Brexit we'll be discussing in years to come, it will be Wexit and Skexit.
Yeah.